Hey guys, I want to welcome you and let you know how great it is to have you here for the Greater Purpose Podcast.
What's up? Welcome to the Greater Purpose Podcast from the Cubs Room. Here we are in the Cubs Room. What do you think?
This is awesome. Honestly, this is crazy.
Good. I like that description. It's crazy. So awesome and crazy. Good. So listen, the Cubs Room is available to come see. You don't have to be a podcast guest. Although it's nice to have a podcast guest in here to see it, but you don't have to be a podcast guest if you'd like to come see the Cubs Room. It's covered in 15,000 Chicago Cubs baseball cards. Well, I stopped counting at 15,000, so we don't know exactly how many. And then the collection is here too. So if you're any kind of sports fan, even if you hate the Cubs, which nobody hates the Cubs, but it's still kind of cool to come see it. So you're welcome to come see it. Just send me a message. Something like that, and we'll hook it up so you can come check out the Cubs Room. But we're here for the podcast, the Greater Purpose Podcast. So you can catch up on all of our 76, 77, 78. This is podcast number 78. Wow. So you can catch up on all the previous 77 episodes by going to the-greater-purpose.com. And that, by the way, that's for visual effect right there. That's, I could do a professional slide, but that kind of looks a little, get your attention, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you can also go to BWASAP. That stands for Bill Ward. My old name for my photography was Ace Sports and Action Photography. I don't use that name anymore because it's just Bill Ward Photography. But BWASAP.com, and you can go to the podcast. You can go to other ministry opportunities, all kinds of stuff. It's a landing page for everything. But the-greater-purpose.com will get you there also. And we'll shout out to Stephen Wright, our producer, who's not here today because I didn't tell him we were here. So not his fault. Co-producer, Donna Ward, executive producer, Donna Ward, who my awesome and lovely wife, who kind of keeps me on a straight path for what we're doing here on the podcast, and introduce my guest for today, Quan Anderson.
Hey,
so glad to have you here, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is going to be great, and I'm looking forward to it. So I know Quan, but Quan is going to tell you who he is.
Well, my name is Quan Anderson. I'm a 10-year Navy veteran. I got out January 4th of this year, 2024, and now I'm a college student. I attend South Gastonia Church of God with my brother Bill Ward here, and I'm just glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I
that's
appreciate
great. That. And a wife and kids and all that good stuff.
Yes.
So shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to my wife Aaliyah and my son Carter.
Kids, not kids. Yeah. Sorry, there's always so many kids.
Oh yeah.
Back in that part of the sanctuary is like, who belongs to who? I know Carter. I know Carter's yours, so that's cool. Yeah, so great. So what are you taking in college? What are you going for?
Health and wellness, bachelor's degree.
Oh, nice.
In the Navy, I was a combat medic, or a corpsman, as they say in the Navy.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to pursue more of the medical field. I love it. I thought that was always my passion. And I think medicine is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important for people. So
health and wellness. I might need to talk to you about some of that.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
Physical. So we had a guy in here a couple of weeks ago that was the last podcast, and that was Darren Glenn. He's a former Mr. USA.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he won the title in 2012, I think it was.
Oh,
so cool. Imagine, he comes in here and he's like, and I'm like, so I may have to talk to you about that. Yeah. The health and well, but thank you for your service. We appreciate that. So we're going to dive into the questions here. When did you first recognize? Like, was it overnight? Was it when you were a kid? But then you you realized it later on. God slapped you upside the head. Mm-hmm. It was progressive. However, it's different for everybody. When did you recognize the importance of becoming a godly man?
Well, I always grew up in church. I and I always knew about the importance of God, and I always knew the importance of being a Christian, but I didn't know what it really meant to be that. And there was a specific point in my life when I was about 26 years old, where me and my wife we just were going through trials and tribulations. It literally rocked me to my core. And I remember God just giving me an ultimatum saying, like, look, this is your life without me, and this is your life with me.
Yeah.
And I can take you to greater and higher places, or you can stay here. And I can remember being in a sunken place where just a shell, like I didn't know who I was. I was on autopilot. I just let the day go by, and I didn't feel like I served a purpose. And that's one thing that the military can do sometimes, because we are, it's a fighting force there, and sometimes your feelings have to get put on the back burner.
Yeah.
And I felt like I just was one of those guys who slipped through the cracks, and I felt like alone. I felt like I didn't have anybody. And I remember a point where everything around me felt so loud, and then in an instant, it just went silent.
Wow.
And I dropped to my knees and I asked God to just forgive me for one of my sins. And I asked him, whatever he has for me, whatever he asks of me, I'll do it. And whatever you have for me, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I wanted to serve God, like, no matter what it took, and to live in that truth. So,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and I've noticed, like I told you beforehand, we have chats before the podcast starts, and I don't like overanalyze everybody. It's like I'm not sitting there analyzing somebody every time they're talking. But over time, you analyze somebody and their characteristics and their character and what they're doing or not doing and the fruit of their labors and everything like that. So, and that's what I've noticed about you is your desire to be more committed to Christ and what he wants you to do. So that's pretty cool. That's neat to see, especially in a guy that's a lot younger than me. So, it kind of reminds me, let's see, I was saved when I was 26.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So we're really right close there too, about the same time of that transformation. So that's pretty cool. Now I didn't come up in church, so and I've given my testimony. See, I'm not giving it here, guys. You got to go back and look at my time. But yeah, so that's kind of the transition. Mine was a little more dramatic, I think, because I was an atheist. But anyway, so that's pretty cool. So who would you say in that transformation, and you got a lot of people, I'm sure, but if you had to pick one person, man or woman, one person that you could point to and say, okay, that was the person that was majorly, if that's a word, I don't think so, but it was majorly instrumental in your transformation. Who would that be?
I don't want to sound too cliche, but my wife, honestly.
Dude, that's great. Yeah.
My wife, at my lowest point, clung to me so tightly. She wouldn't let me go. Even when I pushed her away, even when I, hurt her with the things that I did or said, she just held to me. And she would always tell me, there is a greater you inside of you than there is, out in the world. And I could not see it. For the longest amount of time, I couldn't see what she saw in me. And, the enemy would tell me, like, she's lying to you. Like, but based off of your actions, you're not a good person. So why believe what she says? But she just,
that's awesome.
She held on tight, and she showed me that I could be anybody who I wanted to be. And I didn't have to live in that fear, or I didn't have to live by the curse of my father. That was one of my biggest fears, is that, I was going to end up like my dad. And the relationship that me and my son have, it was going to be how my father is with me. And I was just so afraid that I just would step back and clam up, not talk. And she just kept pulling and kept fighting for me and kept praying for me. And she is my greatest inspiration. Her perseverance, her strength, it's crazy to say. Her life, she grew up very, very hard, and we grew up very differently. I had a stepfather and a mother who was there for me a lot, and she didn't have that, but she's given me the strength to persevere, like through her, and she's amazing.
That's
I love her to
cool.
death.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. And so, yeah, because Pastor Adrian was one of the things he said. Of course, the whole message was great, but one of the things he pinpointed was don't give up your service to God. Don't give up. It's not exactly the way he said it, but I shared this with our men's fellowship, and I told Pastor Adrian that night. I said, you don't know, this was, man, that was like spoke to me. Don't give up where you're serving, what God's doing with you, your ministry position, or whatever else, just because you're struggling. You've got to persevere with that, because Satan's going to tell you you're no good.
Mm-hmm.
Satan's going to tell you you don't belong. Satan's going to tell you you shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
You should be somewhere else because you don't belong here. That
Absolutely.
kind of stuff. And he uses people. He sends people, in your case, Aaliyah. But you've got to stay strong and continue to serve while you're working, while God is working you through those things. So that's cool. That's awesome. I love it. That's great. So, now, I think I'm going to know part of the answer to this, but I probably don't know the whole answer. How do you think, because we're in the softball thing right now, I think I know part of the answer here.
Yeah.
How do you think you are, and your son, I'm sure, but how do you think you're most effective in taking all of that, everything you struggled with, all the bad that you didn't want to happen, the inspiration that your wife gave you to now be walking on the godly path that you should be? How do you think you're most effective in taking that and applying it to men, boys, mostly men and boys in a godly perspective? How do you think that is?
Communication. I think one of God's gifts that He's given me is to be able to resonate with people
I agree with that. Yep.
On any level, and even if I'm not interested in it, like I can still listen and give you the time. I think one thing that I learned very early on is that people love to talk about themselves, and I just like being in the ear.
That's why he likes me.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding.
No. I think people are interested and they have a story to tell. And if you allow them to tell their story, I think there's a lot of healing that comes with that. And, me being a Christian, if I can reach out and plant that seed and touch your soul and allow God to, work through me and to touch that person's soul, I think that is the greatest way to get people. And that's why, about the softball thing, that's why I started it, because there are places where God isn't talked about.
Yeah.
And I think that if we just put God in a box and only talk about Him in church, how are we reaching out to our community? So softball was just an inspiration. And it was honestly the pinnacle of that thought was the Greater Purpose men's conference. Mm-hmm. When those speakers came up and talked about, what it means to be a godly man and how we have to go out and reach out to those people, it hit me in a way that I said to myself, I'm not doing enough. And I said, I have to do something. Yeah. And, in times of crisis, people have to stand up and be able to say, hey, this is wrong, or hey, this is what needs to happen. And I want to be one of those people.
Yes. You've told me that before, so I know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm still getting the what we call, what as Pentecostals call the Holy Ghost chills.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And I've watched the transformation, and I've watched it happen, and it's amazing that God uses just different stuff. And I shared this with the men in our last fellowship. It's just crazy to me that God allows us, if you take the opportunity, God will allow you to be an instrumental part in changing other lives with a godly perspective. And it's just cool how He does that. So,
absolutely,
yeah. So, I mean, we talked about the softball thing for a month, 2 months, whatever it was, you and a couple other guys. And I'll be honest with you. I don't think I told you this. I was a little resistant to the whole thing to begin with. I thought it was a great idea, but I want to play co-ed softball with my wife. Sorry, that's just me. We like to spend our time together, and that's one of the ways we did that. So I was very resistant and a little reluctant. But, when God keeps putting something in your ear, You better listen,
yeah, you gotta
right?
listen.
And so your persistence was important and instrumental in getting all that going. So I appreciate you for doing so. And Quan is an example of stepping out, because this is not necessarily your comfortability level.
No, not
right?
at all. I don't like talking to people, and I don't like really
in
trying.
groups. Like standing up in front of you.
I can't do it for some reason, and I don't like stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But
you did.
It was just too important, and I love our church, and I love the people in our church, and I felt like if I can get these guys together to do something greater than themselves, then I know that we can, change, and we can like persist and persevere. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's not, we're talking about a softball team, a church softball team, and that doesn't sound like a big deal, but again, like I mentioned at the pastor appreciation, we have already seen lives changing.
Absolutely.
And as crazy as that sounds, through hitting the ball and catching a ball and throwing a ball, but we're seeing guys connect and grow closer together and fellowship with each other and pray with each other, and we're leaning on each other with our burdens and that kind of stuff. So it's been really cool to see that happen. And so and because of your persistence, that's been pretty cool. So we appreciate that. So I guess what I'm saying there is, don't hesitate to step outside the box. Like you said, God can use, there's all kinds of ministries out there. You don't have to be on the platform. You don't have to be an usher. You don't have to be in the choir. You don't have to be a Sunday school teacher. All those are great and wonderful, and you should, if you're called to be that, but there are so many other opportunities, and it might be something that you've never done, might be something that church hasn't done. I think we had softball teams before, but it's been 10, 12 years, whatever. So, it could be a restart. We just don't know. So the Rangers was another restart. We hadn't done the Rangers in a long time, and then we restarted the Rangers I think it was back during COVID. And that's been pretty amazing too. So anyway, there's opportunities out there, guys. Take those opportunities. So, now we're going to jump into some topical stuff here. And you said you wanted to share with us your 5, inspirations. Is that correct?
Yes.
So who, now you named, so there's 5 men. So you gave us one, you gave us your main inspiration, which is Aaliyah. So you're going to give us your 5 main male inspirations in your godly walk. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Do I need to explain?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah. We'd like to, So, and that's important because those men were where you are now. And so somebody out there is in a position that needs that inspiration, so that then they can become the inspiration for the next generation. So
gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
So in no particular order, but for one, my wife's grandfather, so my grandfather-in-law, he was a recon Marine during the Vietnam War. He's very strong, and he's a very smart man, and he just reminds me of a generation of men who just fought for what they believe. A lot of men nowadays, we kind of bend, or we kind of, just go with the flow and whatever's easiest. But he just is steadfast in his beliefs, and he's strong, and you can't change his mind. If he believes in something, you just can't change his mind, and not right or wrong. But he's, he's very hard on the outside, but he's soft on the inside. Nelson Powell.
There you go.
Nelson Powell. He's a great inspiration of mine. My second is our pastor, Pastor Adrian. His love for God is just pure, and it just gives me, it just ignites a fire in me every time I hear him speak. It is beautiful. His love for God is just something that I'm striving to reach for, and to be able to stand up and say in front of millions of people, like, you can't change the way I feel about God. No matter how you feel, no matter what you believe, like, I love God, and I'm going to stay true.
I know where I am in Christ, and
exactly.
Cool. Yep. And he's so humble. Sorry, he's my pastor too, so I can interject there. But he's so humble and such a dedicated leader and dedicated to our people. And so I agree with that. Number 2.
Number 3 would have to be Chris White. He is my mentor. He definitely reached out to me at my lowest point, and this was when I started coming to church. and he just made sure I was okay. He made sure I was, still like, taking those steps to find myself again and to be the godly man he knew I could be, because he would always encourage me, like, don't give up. Like, this is only the beginning, and he is somebody that, I look to whenever I feel like I'm faltering or wavering. He's just like one of those people. It's like, steadfast and strong. And I love him to death. He's a really good guy.
He's so we see him all the time because he's in positions that we see him. But what a lot of people don't see is that behind the scenes stuff. He's really good at the networking with guys that need guidance or need somebody to lean on. So he's really good at that. So he brings them in and then he turns them over to me for the podcast. Right?
That's how you get your
But he is really good at that, and that's pretty amazing to me, because there's a lot of people that no one will ever know that he has reached out to, but he has touched so many lives through that the blessings are definitely his. So cool. All right.
And number 4 would have to be Matt Huffman.
Yeah.
Oh man, he is such a prayer warrior. It blows my mind. Like his softness and tenderness for God. Like I see him, and when he prays, you can just feel it. Yeah. You can feel him giving everything he has in his prayers and just wanting the best for his church, for his people, and definitely for me, he's another mentor of mine who he's always encouraging me to, don't just stop there, go a little bit farther. And, and if I don't have the answer, read the Bible. The Word always has the answer.
Yeah.
And he's very knowledgeable about the Bible. I love hearing him talk, and and whenever he's doing his not Sunday school, the Wednesday night services, right. Whenever he does those things, like I love hearing him talk and just kind of break down the Bible to someone like me who may not understand. So he's really good.
And since you're going to throw people out that I know, I can comment too, right? But so in same thing here, and he's I guess 30s, I'm 61, and he said something to me a couple months ago. I guess it was maybe a year ago, and I don't remember. We chat all the time, in passing or whatever, and we joke around and we laugh and we pray, and if somebody needs something, whatever. But with he and I, it's a lot of passing, so there's not as in-depth stuff. But he stopped me one time and said something to me that was so encouraging that I was like, wow. I mean, it was like totally unexpected. I wasn't asking for it, and I wasn't looking for the pat on the back.
Yeah.
But he delivered it because God gave him something to say, and he said it. So
that's Matt, right?
Yes,
that is him.
Yeah, well, and we need to do that too. It's again, I've encouraged our men in our fellowships. Don't just sit back and do your stuff. Encourage others to be doing what they're doing. If you see a guy that's doing a really awesome thing for God, tell him about it. Make sure he's encouraged in what he's doing, because that keeps us going. We're not looking for the accolades. We don't need the praise. Okay, but we're human.
Absolutely.
And I believe God blesses us with that if we're following His footsteps. So that's cool. Yeah. All right. A couple guys I could comment.
Yeah. Well, you can definitely comment on this last guy, because my last but not least is definitely you. You have been a pinnacle point.
Should have warned me about that one.
I'm sorry. But you have been a pinnacle point in my life, and I think about myself as this, a machine or a car. The other ones, they put the parts on, they make sure it works, but you're the fine tuner. And I look at you as whenever I feel like I'm leaning too far to the left or to the right, it's like, hey, you're doing okay. You're doing exactly what you need to do. And, I thank you for that, because not only that, like, I see you as a mentor, but I see you as a friend and somebody who I look up to. And like I said, you're just in general, a good person. Your calm demeanor helps me calm down when I'm spiraling out of control of my mind, and just your words of wisdom and kindness always, just give me hope and give me strength. So
I regroup now.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Like,
My co-producer, by the way, loves it when I cry on the podcast. So she didn't thank you for that. So, and you better tell everybody else about this calmness thing. I'm just kidding. So, and I make sure people know that where God has me is because of so many people before me, including my wife. Awesome, unbelievable. If I go there, I'll definitely start crying. But way back, probably at your age, a lady named Eva Harkness. What was her name? And I was in Statesville, living in Statesville, going to Beulah Baptist Church at the time. But anyway, she was such an amazing encourager. And I was not. I've gone through phases in my life, and that was not a phase of being an encourager. But I told her, I wanted her to know how important it was how her encouragement, what it meant to me, and how important it was. And I told her, I said, I'm praying that God will teach me that, because that's a gift sometimes. Yeah. Now, some people have it naturally. Well, it's still a gift, but some people have it as a natural gift. And mine was not. I was not. I was always pushing, trying to make things happen, do this, do that. Hey, how come you're not doing this? So I wouldn't say that encouragement was one of my biggest, but I prayed hard, and I hope that's what he's doing. So it's helping me be that. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
But I wish you'd have warned me a little bit about that. So, but thank you. Listen, I've seen your transition. I've seen you grow. God's doing some really cool and amazing things in you, and I am glad just to be a really tiny part of that. That's very cool.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So, some good names there, and then mine. No, I'm kidding. So, all right. Anything else you want to share ministry-wise because we got to do your sports-related story, but of course before that we've got to do our shtick over here. You kind of know what happens. You've seen the podcast.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just want to be a light for those who are lost. Yeah. And I look at us as our church as this big flame, this eternal flame that that's God. And we're torches, and I feel like we need to go out and seek those people who are lost. Yeah.
Candle flame.
I was thinking about it because the Olympics, you know how the Olympics always take the torch, and so that's what I kind of see ourselves as, just a torch, of the church to go out and seek these people and bring them into the light, you know. And there was a quote, I can't remember who it was from, but he had said that, how much do I have to hate a person to not tell them about God? And I just thought that was beautiful because, I don't hate anybody, and I would love for everybody to experience the love of God, and especially what we experience at Southwest, the movement of God. So
right. And God is moving all over the county. So I try to express that to so many people because if Pentecostal worship is not your style, people are getting saved all over the place. Revivals are happening all over the place. And it doesn't have to be denominational. Jesus Christ is the same for everybody. God and the Holy Spirit are the same for everybody. Not necessarily, not necessarily the same outwardly, but still the Trinity, God, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit are the same for everybody. So, and I like your torch. I like that because we always talk about hiding your candle under, and then we're not talking about it's in the Bible, hiding your candle under the bushel. But, again, I'm not good at quoting scripture, but anyway, now we think of candle, but I like the torch. Yeah. Because we come out with this little candle, and that's okay. Yeah. In a very dark room, that's great. And guess what? You come with that torch. Oh, yeah. Here I am. Yeah. I like that. Exactly. That's a good analogy. That's pretty cool. All right. So before we go into your sports-related story, you get parting gifts. Did you watch that far in the podcast?
No, I didn't see that far.
See there? Okay. So he's been watching some of the podcasts. I already know that. But so you get parting gifts. So your first parting gift is this expensive, valuable bottle of hand sanitizer. And this is a shameless plug for my businesses. Okay. Mr. Bill's STEM Education. See, now I got to put this at the front or something because people aren't watching all of it. You need to watch the whole podcast. Yeah. Mr. Bill's STEM Education and Bill Ward Photography. So that's your first parting gift.
Thank you.
Then you will I will autograph this. This is Me.
Willie Ace.
That's right. Spelled the right way. There's my official Chicago Cubs baseball card, and I will autograph that, and I will number it number 78. And my producer Stephen Wright says that it'll be worth exactly what it's worth when you walk out of here. I don't know what that means, but anyway. So, and the most exciting thing is you get to choose from a Lego superhero.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And you say to yourself, why a Lego superhero, right? Is that what you're saying in your mind right now?
Kinda,
See, I knew it. I could read your mind. I knew it. I love it when they play along, so that's good. So, the reason for the Lego superhero, by the way, I have my own. We just talked about this the other day, right? Iron Man, right? So I have mine. You can't have him. That's mine. There might be one in here, though. So I have Iron Man. That's my Legos. There's two reasons for the Lego superhero. Number one, they have to build you don't have to do it here. You can do it at home. Okay. But you build your Lego superhero, and you said you were in STEM activities when you were a kid in school. So STEM, science, technology, engineering, the E stands for engineering. So you have to engineer, you have to build your own Lego superhero. That's one reason. And the other reason is because we believe that the men that come through here on the Greater Purpose podcast, in God's eyes, are superheroes. So you get to choose. And now we still got some. We haven't determined whether we think Loki is a good guy or a bad guy, so we left him in here. But there are some in here that we're not sure about. So, there's Spider-Man. My executive producer told me to go through the box before the podcast, but I didn't do that. I'm fessing up right here. I don't know who that is. Who's that?
I don't know.
Oh, that's one of the warriors from now. Oh, and there's female superheroes too. Okay. Because females in our lives are superheroes too. Yeah. So, because there's Captain Marvel, and there's the Green Lantern, and that's the Gauntlet. Oh, you could have the Gauntlet. You watch the Avengers? So there's the Gauntlet. And there's Black Widow, and there's Iron Woman. There's that's Falcon.
I'll take him.
Cool. There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Falcon, that's cool. All right, so you've got Falcon, and now
you may have to change because Robert Downey Jr.
I know. Now I got to be Dr. Doom.
Yeah, you have to play Dr. Doom. So yeah. So we're gonna have to change that.
Switching. I'm always Iron Man. No, I'm kidding. That's funny. I like that. Yeah, I noticed all that. I'm like, what? Don't do this to me. I mean, since 2008.
I know, right?
An Iron Man. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, cool. Yeah. So, all right. So you got your superhero. Now you get to tell us your sports-related story.
Sports-related story. Does it have to be like mine or just anything?
Oh, yeah. You could be motorcycle riding, anything. Just something that's funny, interesting, cute, crazy.
I think something that was really profound for me was the gentleman who played for the Arizona Cardinals. I think his name was Pat Tillman. Yeah. Yeah, he, left the NFL to join the military, after the 9/11 attack. Right. And I think that, that sacrifice is really important to talk about in today's age because I would hope, but I don't know if there's a lot of people out there who would, take, the higher road and take the pay cut. And say, hey, I'm gonna go do something and fight for my country. So I think,
well, he gave up millions and gave up his life because he's killed in. If some of you don't know, Pat Tillman, Arizona Cardinals, left NFL millions of dollars to go fight for his country and was actually killed in friendly fire. I think in crossfire in some operation, but you don't see that sacrifice much anymore. So that's a great testimony right there, Pat Tillman. There you go. Cool. All right. Well, that was good. Well, Quan, thank you. I appreciate you being here for the podcast.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you being here for the podcast. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that kind of stuff. Make sure it's getting out there. Go back and watch the previous episodes of the podcast. And if you can, go to KOFI, Coffee. It's a fundraising app, and we don't have huge costs here, but we have some software costs, and we're trying to get the word out there. So there's a little bit of promotional stuff like that. But if you can go for like $2 a month, I think that's why it's called Coffee. For the price of a cup of coffee, you can support the Greater Purpose podcast. So we would appreciate you doing that. We thank you for being here. We hope you've been inspired, motivated, and encouraged to walk in your greater purpose. Thank you, and God bless. We'll see you next week.